The story starts with our protagonist. He goes over his massive to-do list involving a bunch of high-ranked trolls, basilisks, and even some S-rank dragons. And this guy is Tanaka Makoto from the Black Dog Guild, and he looks like he's about to collapse from overwork. He stares at the monster data on his screen, realizing the work is so much that he's going to miss the last train again. He just slumps back in his office chair and lets out a long, tired sigh, while his empty energy drink hits the floor. Even if he leaves for the dungeon right this second, he knows he's already screwed on time because it's already going to be way past midnight, and he honestly can't even remember the last time he slept in his own bed. Sitting alone in the office, Tanaka just stares at his desk. Dude is dying for a nap. About 10 years back, these weird stone structures just started popping up all over the planet, and everyone started calling them dungeons, since they looked like portals to another world. Tons of crazy monsters that nobody had ever seen before started coming out of them, but there were also weapons made with some wild, high-tech stuff found inside, and regular people started calling themselves explorers just so they could go in and hunt for treasure. Obviously, if you go into a place like that without any gear, you're basically asking to die, but when the dungeon showed up, some people actually got lucky and ended up with special powers. It made them way stronger than any normal person, and dude's flexing his power like anyone at. Tanaka thinks about how he's one of those awakened guys while some person on the train geeks out over the monster news, and a guy nearby says he'd love to try a dungeon run, but his girl tells him to stop because he doesn't have powers. The train announcement says the exit is on the left, and Tanaka notices how popular dungeon streams have become. Everyone is using a site called D2 to watch guys hunt monsters, and Tanaka realizes being a streamer is the new meta. He's never even thought about trying it though, since he's always spent all this time grinding at work, and he taps his card at the station gate while wondering if those streamer guys actually make good money. Tanaka admits he really has no clue about that stuff, and walking through the gate just makes him feel old. He shows up at the Shibuya underground dungeon where guards are everywhere. It's definitely not for regular people. And the receptionist finishes his registration and wishes him luck as he takes his Black Dog Guild ID. Tanaka looks pretty tired but says it's finally time to go in, so he stands at the edge of the massive drop-off. The Onagawa dungeon entrance in Shibuya looks like a giant, creepy skull carved into the rock. Talk about a bad vibe. Right before heading down, Tanaka realizes he almost forgot something and pulls out a little round drone. Tanaka lets go of his little drone and it starts hovering right next to him. The camera eye clicks on, and the little thing is basically a portable camera that sends all this hunt footage straight to the guild, and he checks his phone, thinking about how he usually just uses the stream settings to finish his work reports, but seeing the D2 option on the screen makes him feel a bit sick. Dude is seriously struggling with his work-life balance. Out of nowhere, Tanaka's legs give out and he slams into the metal railing, giving the guard nearby a heart attack. The guard rushes over to ask if he's alright, and Tanaka just covers his face and says he's doing fine, so he tells the guy he just got a little dizzy, though the guard thinks he straight up looks like a walking corpse. Tanaka starts heading down the massive stone staircase into the dark. He's moving like a zombie while the drone follows, and every step feels heavy since he hasn't been home in 2 weeks and only caught a tiny 2-hour nap today. He finally reaches the cave floor and just stands there, wondering when the last time he actually got a good night's sleep was. Tanaka stands there with a bit of stubble, just wondering what he's actually doing with his life. He explains that his company is basically a government subcontractor. It sounds fancy, but it actually sucks, and it really just means they're forced to do all the dangerous S-rank jobs that the government is too scared to touch. The guild is constantly buried under a massive pile of impossible work, basically a corporate nightmare, so Tanaka is pretty sure he's going to die from overwork soon, but honestly, he's too busy to even think about quitting. Dude is a literal slave to the grind. Imagine being too tired to even hand in a resignation letter. So once again, he heads deep into the dungeon looking like a total zombie with 0 life left in his eyes, and his vision is starting to get all blurry, but he just rubs his eyes and tells himself the stream settings are fine. Today's mission is the Shibuya Underground. It's one of the biggest dungeons in all of Tokyo, and he's got to spend his whole day working way down in the dark depths of that massive crater. Tanaka fixes his tie and tells himself it's time to get to work. Dude looks like he needs a nap more than a dungeon run, and he walks into the cave with his camera drone, having no clue that this specific dive is going to flip his life upside down. His whole world is about to change drastically, even if he's currently looking like a total zombie. People online stumble onto his stream and freak out because he's soloing Shibuya. They're literally calling it a suicide mission. Tanaka just complains about the dust while viewers realize his guild's monster quota is actually insane. Nobody should be doing this solo. Someone in the chat thinks they've seen him before, Meanwhile, he's just hopping across the rocks like it's nothing. The dungeon has 4 different levels to get through, but Tanaka is moving way faster than a normal person would, and he spots exactly where he needs to go. He's heading straight for the deepest level of the whole place. He stands at the edge of the pit and says he's finally made it. Normal hunters would take their time going down, but he's in a rush. Tanaka just steps off the ledge like he's got a bus to catch. Tanaka decides he's just going to jump straight to the bottom of the pit. He's way too over it to take the long way, and he stands on the edge of the cliff, thinking about how much he needs a warm meal and a long nap. Dude is truly struggling, so he looks down into the dark hole while his camera drone follows close behind. The drone keeps recording every second. Tanaka figures the guild president won't even notice he's taking a shortcut. As he falls, he starts venting about how he definitely doesn't get paid enough for this. He's tired of being forced into life or death spots. He realizes he'll be lucky to even get 2 hours of sleep tonight, which is honestly just a nightmare. Meanwhile, the people watching his stream are losing it over the labor violations. The viewer count is starting to blow up like crazy. Suddenly, his phone starts buzzing like crazy in his pocket, and he wonders who could possibly be calling him right now. He doesn't use social media and only has work contacts, so he figures it's just the guild calling to annoy him again. He decides to just ignore the calls because he knows it'll just be people yelling at him. He's getting insulted tomorrow anyway. Tanaka decides he's just going to get on with it and stop overthinking things. He's ready to move, and he walks along the rocky ledge while announcing that his destination is the very lowest level of the dungeon. The Shibuya underground dungeon is built like a giant pit, and right in the center of it lies a massive well. Tanaka looks down from the edge and figures that if he just jumps down that well, he can reach the bottom in one shot, so he just dives headfirst into the dark abyss like it's nothing. He knows most explorers wouldn't be this crazy since it's super dangerous, but he's only doing this because his work quota is a joke. The people watching the stream are absolutely losing it and calling it a suicide run, but Tanaka just hears something and realizes his phone is vibrating again. He can't believe someone is calling him at a time like this. He notices it's been ringing way too much today, but he tells himself it's probably nothing worth his time. He decides to just ignore the call and focus on the fall. Man's literally ghosting his boss while falling to his death. Tanaka notices the recording drone is still sticking to him during the fall, and he admits to himself that being on camera still feels weird, but it's a guild rule, so he has to deal with it. He gets a bit nervous thinking about the recording, even though he's sure it's just for the company records, but then he starts wondering how embarrassing it would actually be if he were streaming this to the public. He thinks streamers are pretty impressive, and catches himself wondering if people would even comment on his stuff. Turns out he's already famous. The chat is losing it over how long he's been falling and how dead his face looks. Tanaka sees the ground getting close and decides it's finally time to get ready for the landing, so he looks down and sees a massive winged monster waiting for him with its jaws wide open. The beast lets out a loud roar, but Tanaka just pulls his sword and slices through it like it's nothing. Man just turned a boss-level threat into a landing pad without even breaking a sweat. The live chat is freaking out asking what that monster is, and while some think the fangs look painful, others realize it's a high-rank wyvern and think Tanaka is toast. Tanaka isn't worried at all though. He just looks at the red wyvern and figures it's some weakling that mistook him for an easy snack. So, the monster lets out a massive roar as it lunges, but Tanaka just keeps dropping toward those giant teeth with his hand on his weapon. He keeps his cool and grips his sword hilt, waiting for the perfect moment to strike while he's still falling through the air. With a quick shout, he moves like a blur right through the monster's open mouth. Man's really out here playing Fruit Ninja with a dragon. He stands there looking totally bored while the wyvern behind him gets absolutely shredded into pieces, and he finally hits the bottom of the pit, sticking a landing on the jagged rocks like it was nothing. Tanaka takes a second to catch his breath and thinks to himself that the landing actually turned out pretty smooth, but the chat is having a total meltdown. Tanaka's just complaining about his legs being numb. All 50,000 people argue about how he killed a boss without even looking like he pulled his sword. The viewer count hits over 50,000 and doesn't stop, with everyone saying the clip is already going viral all over social media. Tanaka's phone is blowing up so much that he starts getting annoyed, wondering how many times these people are going to keep calling him while he gets ready to move. He figures it's time to get to work and stares down a group of huge monsters, and it looks like things are finally getting interesting now that he's face to face with a dragon and its crew. He looks up at the hole he fell through and reminds himself that he's at the absolute bottom of the dungeon. Basically, a complete death trap that's totally overrun by the kind of powerful monsters that most people never see, and he starts ticking them off like a grocery list. There are trolls and minotaurs everywhere, and he spots some basilisks and death knights too. Basically, every single thing in this room is a high-level threat. Then he looks at the big boss of the group, the tyrant dragon, and the massive beast just stares back at him with a low growl. It's definitely not happy he's there. Tanaka honestly doesn't even want to fight something that looks this tough, but he's got a work quota to hit. Man's really about to slay a dragon just because it's on his to-do list. Tanaka puts his hand on his sword and tells himself it's time to get started, and he draws his blade with a tired look, officially clocking in for a long shift of monster hunting. One of the giants lets out a massive roar, but Tanaka just rushes in and kicks it right in the face, and even though trolls are famous for being huge and scary, he doesn't seem bothered at all. He remembers that they actually gave him a hard time the first time he fought them, but now he just glides through the pack and slices them up like it's nothing. The monsters are confused by how fast he is, but even though they're built like tanks, Tanaka knows they go down easy if you aim for the neck since they don't have any special powers, so he leaves them in the dust, calling them some of the weakest things at this depth. Meanwhile, the stream is blowing up with people from social media who can't believe a Black Dog member is soloing monsters that usually wreck a ranked teams. Tanaka looks like he hasn't slept in a week and just sighs, clearly over everything. And he starts yelling at his phone that he's at work and they need to stop pestering him. A giant basilisk with trippy swirl eyes shows up to ruin his day, but Tanaka doesn't even look scared, and the stream chat is losing it because nobody has ever seen a live basilisk from the bottom level before. The monster makes a gross noise while the viewer count hits a massive 5 million. Talk about a high-pressure gig. Tanaka remembers that one hit from this thing's breath turns you into stone, which is an instant game over. Usually, a teammate could heal that with an item, but since he's a solo player, he's totally on his own, and he decides he needs to kill it before it can even take a breath, so he sharpens his focus. He shouts now and launches a massive, blindingly fast sword strike, and the monster lets out one last weird sound as his blade rips right through its face. Tanaka stands there looking bored while the massive basilisk gets absolutely wrecked behind him, and he looks right at his camera drone and mentions that most people don't actually know this secret, so he explains the monster's weak spot while the stream chat goes nuts calling him a legendary Japanese samurai. His phone starts buzzing like crazy again, and he gets annoyed because he's literally risking his life while someone's spamming him. He figures he'll just get insulted if he picks up, so he decides to ignore the call and keep moving. Suddenly, a deafening roar shakes the whole room and a massive shadow starts to cover the ground, and this giant, spiky dragon shows up out of nowhere to block his path. Talk about bad timing for a guy who just wants to go home. Tanaka recognizes it immediately as a tyrant dragon, which is a super dangerous S-rank monster, and it turns out this beast has way more power and defense than a whole group of trolls combined. On top of that, it breathes out air so hot it can melt straight through solid iron, and now Tanaka has to deal with it. The stream chat is absolutely losing it over the size of the dragon. People are posting fake death notices for Tanaka, while 50 million viewers watch and the massive tyrant dragon stands right over him like he's nothing. Tanaka just stands his ground against the giant beast, and he realizes the dragon's fire breath is so hot it would turn him into actual dust if he doesn't move. But to make sure that doesn't happen, he drops into a low stance to draw his sword. He's moving with total focus while everyone watching screams at him to run away. They can't believe he's actually trying to fight this thing head-on. Suddenly, Tanaka moves in a total blur and draws his blade faster than anyone can see, and a massive shockwave from his swing tears right through the air and slams into the dragon's neck. He stands there totally calm as the S-rank monster gets sliced clean in half behind him. Talk about a flex. The chat is going crazy calling him a corporate slave swordmaster for one-shotting a dragon, but Tanaka just sighs and says he's tired. And even after that huge win, a bunch of other monsters show up to block his way. This guy just can't catch a break. The dragon Tanaka just killed was actually the big boss of the area. With it gone, all the other monsters have totally lost their nerve, and Tanaka realizes that even if he wiped out the rest, the company would just take all the loot. He's already hit his daily quota, so he sheathes his blade since there's no reason to keep working for free. He looks at the monsters and tells them to just get lost because he's letting them go. The monsters don't need to be told twice. They immediately scramble and run for their lives while Tanaka sighs, glad he finished earlier than he thought. He just needs to grab his materials so he can finally go home, but he decides he should probably check his phone first, even though he has a really bad feeling about it. He pulls it out and sees the screen is completely covered with over 9,000 notifications. This guy's inbox is basically a crime scene. He stares at the device for a moment before clicking the screen to see what's going on, and the notifications just keep piling up. It looks like his secret run didn't stay very secret for long. Tanaka loses it when he sees his phone is sitting at max notifications. He knew people were calling, but nearly 10,000 alerts is just insane. He starts scrolling through the mess to see what's actually happening and spots something that makes him stop cold. His phone won't stop pinging with DTube alerts, and he has no clue why a private work recording would be getting social media comment. The guy lets out a terrified shriek as the reality of the situation starts to sink in. He's definitely not alone in this dungeon. He stares at his screen in total disbelief, screaming about why his private video is suddenly covered in comments from random people. His eyes are practically popping out of his head while he tries to process the mess, since none of this makes any sense to him. He swears he set the stream to company only so only his bosses could see, but the settings clearly show it was set to anyone the whole time. His face goes completely blank as he realizes he totally botched the most important setting on his phone. He looks up at his floating camera drone and realizes that every single thing he's done today has been broadcast nationwide. He tries to tell himself that there's no way a random stream like his would actually get many views, but deep down he knows he's in trouble. Tanaka starts counting the digits on his screen, going from hundreds to thousands. His eyes go wide as he hits 1,000,000, and he completely loses it when he realizes he actually has 100 million viewers. The guy is screaming in total shock. He drops to his knees, thinking about how his company account only has 2,000 subs. That's the number that should be there, but the reality is way more insane than anything he could have imagined. Even the most famous streamers out there don't see numbers like that. Most people can't even pull in 1,000,000 viewers on a good day, but he's sitting at 100 million. Dude's accidental stream just broke the internet. The chat is blowing up with people saying they were there for the legend. They're laughing at his work comment and begging for his name. Tanaka looks like a ghost while people tell him he's trending as the corporate slave swordmaster. Guilds are already trying to scout him. He stares at the endless wall of messages on his screen and realizes there's no way to calm this down. He's way past the point of no return. Looking at the dead monsters surrounding him, he realizes he's in deep trouble. He's definitely going to be writing a massive report for his boss. The scene shifts to the very next day after the stream incident. Right outside the Black Dog Guild headquarters, things are about to get messy. Tanaka is hiding under a blanket on his couch. He's basically trying to disappear from the face of the earth, and he groans about being the biggest topic online while staring at his phone in total horror. Every news site is covered with headlines about the guy who soloed an S-rank dragon. He checks social media next to see the damage. The internet is losing its mind. Fans are making fan pages and everyone is wondering why a legend like him is still a corporate slave. He eventually just gives up and tosses his phone onto the couch. The dude is way too stressed to deal with this. Tanaka realizes he's finally gone viral, but since he's been a workaholic his whole life, he has no idea what to do next. He needs an expert's help. He knows he's the only one crazy enough to dive deep solo, but he still doesn't get why everyone is making such a huge deal out of it. He thinks back to all the time he spent crawling through dark dungeon tunnels alone, and realizes that because he never works with others, he has no clue what the average power level for an explorer even looks like. Tanaka has actually been doing this since dungeons first showed up. He was out there in safety first gear before anyone else. Tanaka thinks back to when he was just a kid in cheap safety gear. He knew he was strong, but never expected this kind of fame. He sits there sweating and trying to figure out the logic behind his video going viral, and wonders if it's just because he looks like the most boring salaryman on the planet. He realizes that wearing a suit and having giant dark circles under his eyes makes him look nothing like a top-tier explorer, so the massive contrast must be what's making everyone lose their minds. Then suddenly, his phone starts buzzing on the table. The thing is vibrating like crazy and it catches him completely off guard. He actually screams and jumps onto the wall like a cat. Dude is seriously stressed out. He's panicked because he already logged out of everything to stop the notification, so there's no reason for it to be ringing. Tanaka cautiously checks the screen to see what's up and sees an incoming call from a guy named Adachi. Adachi is one of his only old friends. Totally forgot the guy existed. Tanaka stares at his ringing phone, knowing the call is definitely about his viral stunt from yesterday. He really doesn't want to deal with it, but he knows Adachi is the only friend he can actually trust with this stuff. He lets out a tired sigh and finally picks up, and Adachi immediately screams his name into the phone with way too much hype. Adachi starts laughing his head off, saying the video was hilarious and asking how Tanaka is even holding up. Tanaka isn't in the mood for the jokes, so he just hangs up and leaves Adachi staring at a dead screen. He sets the phone down and tries to focus, telling himself he needs to get ready for work. Man's gotta pay the bills, so he pulls on his jacket and slumps over with a heavy breath. This guy is literally the definition of "I need a vacation," and he ends up getting back on the line with Adachi, who asks what he really wants if he's not going to talk. Adachi tries to hold back his laughs and promises to stop teasing so he doesn't get ghosted again. Tanaka just looks exhausted and asks his friend if he's trying to get hung up on a second time. Adachi starts apologizing like crazy over the phone, promising he won't tease Tanaka anymore if he just stays on the line, and Tanaka lets out a long breath, telling his friend that he's being a total pain in the ass right now. Adachi just chirps back with a quick thanks, making Tanaka realize the guy is still having way too much fun with this. Tanaka knows he actually needs Adachi's brain for this, and hanging up now would just be his own loss, so he thinks back to how Adachi was always a natural talker, with a ton of friends back in the day, basically the social butterfly of the group. Since Adachi is so plugged into social media, Tanaka is positive he's the only one who can find a way out of this mess. Adachi mentions that the video showed Tanaka is as strong as ever, but Tanaka thinks he's actually leveled up since the last time they saw each other. Tanaka tells him to cut the flattery and asks what he should do, but Adachi flips the question and asks what Tanaka actually wants. Tanaka pauses to think about what he really wants out of this crazy situation. Man is really going through it, and he says he wants all the videos deleted, but Adachi just laughs and tells him that's impossible, leaving Tanaka totally confused. Adachi explains that people have already made hundreds of clips of Tanaka's skills, and the worst part is, they've gone viral overseas with titles calling him a real samurai, already translated into 5 different languages. Adachi tells him to just give up, leaving Tanaka spiraling as he remembers seeing all those foreign comments during the stream. Tanaka finally agrees to stop trying to delete the videos, but he begs for a way to at least control the situation, though. Adachi thinks he's crazy for wanting to throw away a shot at fame like this, which just makes Tanaka blow a fuse. He screams that he's just a regular worker, and being famous is only going to land him more paperwork from his boss. The stress hits him so hard he doubles over in pain. Dude can eat literal acid slime, but a little anxiety ruins him. Adachi sighs and tells Tanaka he's become a complete corporate slave, so he needs to actually listen to what comes next. Out of nowhere, Adachi suggests that he should just quit the company entirely, which catches Tanaka totally off guard. Adachi points out the massive dark circles under his eyes and how his boss is underpaying him, and Tanaka honestly can't even deny it. Tanaka looks completely burnt out as he thinks about Suda, the guy who runs his company and keeps him on a short leash. Turns out Tanaka, Adachi, and Suda were all classmates who hung out together back in the day. They were basically childhood friends, and Tanaka feels like he owes Suda too much to quit, especially since the president lent him money when his parents got sick. Adachi points out that the debt is already paid off and Tanaka needs to start living for himself, a thought that honestly blows his mind. He's been so swamped with work that he never even stopped to think about his own life, and it's finally starting to sink in. He stares at his beat-up hand, wondering if a guy like him is even allowed to have a life of his own, and Adachi bets that Suda threatened him by saying no one else would hire him, and Tanaka admits that's exactly what the boss said. Adachi just laughs it off and calls the president corrupt. He tells Tanaka not to listen to any of that garbage. The truth is that Tanaka is a beast. There are tons of top-tier guilds out there that would kill to have him on their team, and he could even just go freelance if he's sick of the corporate life. Dude's got options he never even realized. Tanaka sits in his office and tells Adachi that freelancing is a dead end. He doesn't have the paperwork to even get paid, and it's a whole thing because you can't just take a monster's skull or a weird crystal to the bank and expect yen. The way it works is you have to take all that loot and trade it in for a special currency called gold, or just G, but you still need a special government license to turn that gold into actual cash you can spend. Tanaka looks totally drained as he explains that only big corporations usually hold those licenses. Leave it to the government to make things complicated. Apparently, the items in these dungeons are so crazy expensive that if everyone could sell them, the global economy would just tank, so every country on the planet uses this same strict system to keep things under control and the money flowing to the top. But Adachi isn't talking about Tanaka becoming a freelance hunter. He tells him he should become a dungeon streamer instead. Tanaka just repeats the words dungeon streamer like he can't even process what his friend is suggesting. Dude really needs a nap. It's basically just filming yourself fighting monsters for an audience. It's a huge loophole where you can make money without needing any licenses at all. Adachi points out that famous streamers are making a ton of money. Tanaka listens but wonders if he's actually cut out for it, and Adachi tells him he isn't saying he has to do it, he's just putting the idea out there. He promises that if Tanaka does decide to go for it, he'll have his back and help him out however he can. Tanaka knows Adachi works for a company that helps explorers, so he definitely knows his stuff, plus he's always been a loyal friend. Tanaka thinks he can really rely on the guy, so he tells him he's counting on his help, and Adachi just laughs. Dude is probably just happy his friend is finally listening to some good advice. Tanaka mentions he's quitting his guild, but he still can't really see himself being some big shot streamer. He says thinking about the future makes him nervous. Being a grown man with no job is a pretty heavy thought to deal with. Adachi gets a little quiet and says he doesn't really want to be that guy right now, but he tells Tanaka that he used to really admire him back then. It's a total don't waste your potential moment. Adachi sounds surprised and asks if Tanaka meant him, but Tanaka just explains how he used to look up to explorers back then, and Adachi says seeing people give their all in dungeons was cool, but watching Tanaka fight made him realize he didn't need to do it himself. Tanaka just stays quiet for a second, feeling pretty hit by how much his old friend actually believes in him. Adachi explains that's the whole reason he got into the support side of things. He wanted to be ready to help a certain person one day, so Tanaka asks who this mystery person is and if it's someone he knows. Dude is totally missing the point. Adachi just laughs it off and tells Tanaka he's always been a little slow when it comes to stuff like this. He tells Tanaka to just quit if his job sucks that much, and even offers him a spot as a waiter at his company. Tanaka jokes that if a waiter job ever starts sounding like a good career move, he must have seriously cracked his skull. Adachi just laughs and agrees that it would have to be a pretty hard hit to make that happen. Adachi reminds him that he literally killed a tyrant dragon, so there's no way he's losing to a loser like Suda. Tanaka finishes his call, telling Adachi he'll be in touch soon as he heads back into the office, and even though it's not even 8 in the morning yet, he's already stuck back at his desk looking totally drained. Suddenly, someone walks up with a nasty grin. It's Suda, and he kicks Tanaka's chair just to be a jerk. Suda shows up with a couple of his goons backing him up and calls out Tanaka's name, and he starts laughing like a maniac, telling Tanaka he better be ready for what's about to happen. He gets right in Tanaka's face and yells, asking if he actually understands how much he messed up. So, Tanaka's stomach starts turning just from the sound of the guy's voice. Dude is seriously stressing him out. He takes a breath, thankful that his talk with Adachi helped him keep his head straight because, without that talk, he might have just given up. Instead, he stands up and gets ready to face the music. Suda keeps talking with that gross smile, bringing up the fact that Tanaka's stream changed everything. Suda is absolutely losing it, screaming that the company's name is trashed and demanding to know how Tanaka plans to fix this mess. He leans in and says the rest of the staff will be there soon, so Tanaka better be ready for the heat. Dude is such a hater, and he just keeps laughing like a creep while telling Tanaka to prepare for whatever is coming next. Tanaka just sits there looking dead inside, thinking about how this is the same old routine and how Suda actually has zero management skills. It's the classic toxic office vibe where things only get this bad because the company is absolute trash, and Suda is right there leading the charge. Looking at his screen, Tanaka realizes that years of this garbage have completely wrecked his body and mind. But Suda doesn't care and tells a crying lackey to threaten everyone with pay cuts if they aren't at their desks this second. Tanaka stares ahead with a new look in his eyes. He's decided he's finally going to live for himself, even if he has to fight for it. Suda keeps ranting about how being late is unacceptable and tries to act like he's doing Tanaka a favor by being a total jerk. So the other terrified employees just yell out in agreement while crying, totally broken by the guy's power trip. Tanaka realizes that all Suda's talk about helping is just a huge lie. The guy just loves hearing himself talk, and Suda keeps laughing like a maniac while Tanaka watches him, realizing that this guy is just a total loser who gets off on picking on people who can't fight back. Suda acts like being the boss is the hardest job in the world. Dude is literally doing the most right now, so Tanaka tries to hold it together even though his stomach is turning, wondering if he can actually stand up to this jerk. He starts coughing from the stress just as a message from Adachi pops up on his phone at the perfect time. Adachi tells him not to be scared and to just remember that he could actually kill Suda in a second if he wanted to. Tanaka stares at the screen and realizes his friend is right. He's way stronger than this clown, and he fakes an apology while trying to keep a straight face. But Suda just laughs and asks if Tanaka really thinks being sick is going to get him off the hook. Tanaka tells Suda he doesn't think his health will get him out of work. He knows Suda used to be an explorer and is pretty tough, but he also knows the guy hasn't been in a dungeon for forever. Tanaka's pretty sure he's actually the stronger one now. Meanwhile, Suda is just laughing and saying things are good. Tanaka's just watching him, noticing that the guy's movements are sloppy and full of openings, and as Suda keeps acting like a big shot, Tanaka clenches his fist and stares him down. Dude's ego is so big he doesn't even see it coming, so Tanaka imagines just letting loose and taking him out in one shot. He can practically see the guy getting wrecked, and he realizes it would actually take less than a second to end him. Suda gets annoyed and asks what Tanaka is even looking at, but Tanaka isn't even sweating anymore. He realizes the tyrant dragon was way scarier than this loser, so he's not really scared, and it hits him that he was only afraid because he didn't want to get fired. But honestly, looking at how things are going, he doesn't have a single thing to be afraid of anymore. He doesn't even mind quitting this trash job at this point, and he looks down with a serious face, telling himself that he can finally do this. A group of guys finally shows up to the office looking totally drained. They yell out that they're sorry for being late, and Suda checks his phone and screams at them about what time they think it is. The guys can't stop bowing and apologizing, but Suda just gives this nasty look and says he'll deal with cutting their pay later. Dude really loves being a jerk, and he turns his attention back to Tanaka, asking if they're ready to get things moving. He demands Tanaka tell everyone exactly what he did so the whole room can hear it. Tanaka just stands there looking tired while he thinks about how this is the same old routine the boss always uses to mess with people. Suda makes people explain themselves just to make them feel guilty, then he shuts them down to control the room. It's a trick to make sure no one is brave enough to talk back. Tanaka thinks he's a total scumbag as Suda tells him to speak up. Normally Tanaka would be making a pathetic face just like the other guys, but things are different now. He admits out loud that he messed up the stream settings and leaked their work info. He says he knows he's the one in the wrong. Suda's face twists into a really creepy grin. He looks like he's about to have the best time making Tanaka miserable, and Tanaka can tell the boss is already picturing exactly how he's going to break him down during this lecture. Suda starts acting all dramatic and yells that what Tanaka did isn't just a mistake, it's actually a total disaster, and he grabs Tanaka's collar, screaming about how he expects to be paid back for all the trouble. Tanaka just thinks about how the boss is used to getting his way, but he's about to find out that today is different. Tanaka says it's over. He tells Suda that while the guild's reputation is down the drain, it's actually the boss's own fault and nothing to do with him. The guys in the back look like they're about to faint while Suda's face goes dark. He asks Tanaka what he just said, and then he totally loses it, screaming at the top of his lungs with veins popping out of his neck. He kicks a chair across the room in a fit of rage, daring Tanaka to say those words one more time. Talk about a temper tantrum. But Tanaka stays completely chill and tells Suda everyone finally knows the guild is just a shady, overworking mess. Tanaka looks pretty drained as he tells the boss that if the rumors were actually lies, he'd step up and take the fall. But since all the shady stuff being leaked is actually true, Suda is the only one to blame for the mess he's in. Suda completely loses his cool and screams that his guild isn't some black company like Tanaka says, and the dude actually tries to brag about paying them minimum wage and giving them one single day off a month. What a hero. He keeps shouting about how he's the only one willing to hire scum that no other guild would ever want to touch. Suda is literally flexing about his management while Tanaka stands there looking dead inside, wondering who would ever call this place well run. Tanaka doesn't hold back and calls him out for stealing their pay, pointing out they don't even get the legal amount of time off. He asks the boss if he really thought nobody would notice his crimes, and Suda just stands there shaking with rage. Out of nowhere, Suda starts yelling that since he works with the government, he basically is the government and can do whatever he wants. Tanaka just stares at him with a look of pure disbelief. The guy is officially a lost cause. The Black Dog Guild is exposed as being completely rotten. It's pitch black right down to the very core. The other employees are all bailing out, and Tanaka knows it won't be long before the whole place is empty. So now that Suda has finally admitted to his crimes, Tanaka decides it's time to show everyone the truth. Suda starts losing his mind, yelling at Tanaka and demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. Tanaka just tells him they go way back while he quietly checks the stream settings on his phone, and suddenly a huge video of Suda's face is projected right on the wall behind them for everyone to see. Suda looks like he's seeing a ghost and starts panicking. He can't believe his own face is up there. The stream chat is absolutely blowing up with people calling for the police and celebrating the guild's downfall. Looks like the corporate slave just won. Tanaka stares at his screen, thinking about how his plan worked perfectly since the president is totally trapped now. He looks at the tiny recording drone buzzing around and mentions how cool it is that they even have a camouflage mode. Tanaka explains he used the drone's camo mode to stream the whole thing secretly, and Suda can't even believe he got played. The guild's subscriber count is hitting the roof because of the stream, and Tanaka mentions the audience is only going to grow. He tells Suda it's over and that it's finally time to pay back everything he owes the employees, but the stream chat is already celebrating, calling Tanaka the hero of all corporate slaves while they laugh at Suda's total breakdown. Suda snaps and calls him an ungrateful brat while pulling out a hidden weapon, and Tanaka immediately recognizes the blade as a high lethality dungeon weapon, the kind that looks like it's actually alive. Even though it's super illegal to bring that stuff out of a dungeon, Suda has lost it and tells Tanaka to prepare to die. He lunges forward with everything he's got, screaming Tanaka's name as he tries to end him right there. The coworkers in the back are losing their minds with fear, but Tanaka doesn't even flinch. Honestly, Suda's trying too hard. As the cursed blade gets closer, Tanaka just stands there calmly thinking about how incredibly slow the old man is. Tanaka thinks about how the old man is actually slower than the monsters at the bottom of the dungeon, and, while Suda might have been tough back in the day, he's just a corrupt shell of himself now. As Tanaka raises his hand, with one quick motion, he chops down and sends the cursed sword flying right out of Suda's grip. Suda stares at his hands in total shock, screaming because he can't believe how easily he just got disarmed. He hunches over in pure agony, but Tanaka just looks at him and coldly says that he's officially done. Tanaka stands over him and tells the boss it's about time he learned a little bit about what human pain actually feels like. Suda tries to talk trash one last time, but Tanaka isn't having it and wins up for a serious punch. Honestly, he's had this coming. The force of the hit is so insane that the entire office starts falling apart as a massive shockwave rips through the room. Suda gets launched through the air like a rag doll while the other employees just stand there with their mouths hanging open. And the boss finally hits the back wall so hard the concrete completely shatters. That's definitely going to leave a mark. Suda leans against the cracked wall, barely standing as he tells Tanaka he won't ever forgive him for this, and Tanaka notices that even though the boss is a corrupt mess, it looks like Suda's pride is too huge to let him stay down, so he glares at Tanaka and says he's been humiliated. Talk about being a sore loser. Tanaka stands there looking at the damage, realizing that if he lands one more hit, the old man might actually kick the bucket. Suda starts making things difficult by screaming at the other employees and asking them what the hell they're even doing, so he orders the terrified staff to kill the criminal who dared to raise a hand against him. Suda calls everyone useless before pointing a finger at one specific guy and barking out an order to get him. He threatens to cut the guy's pay if he doesn't stop Tanaka immediately. The poor guy looks like he's about to have a heart attack, and Tanaka recognizes the person Suda is picking on. The kid was a promising new hire from last year, but Suda just laughs like a psycho while asking him if he'd be in trouble if his pay suddenly stopped. Suda is losing it, laughing while he tells the kid he'll never work in this business again if he doesn't listen, but he keeps the pressure on by asking the guy if he really wants to lose his entire career right now. The poor kid is shaking like a leaf, just stuttering out that he understands while looking completely broken. He looks at Tanaka and apologizes, promising he'll just try to hold him down and won't actually hurt him. Dude's too nice for this. Tanaka just gives him a blank look and tells him to go ahead and try it, so the kid takes a deep breath and gets into a starting stance, ready to make his move. He lunges forward as fast as he can, reaching out to grab Tanaka's legs for a takedown. Tanaka watches the kid's form and thinks it's actually a pretty smart way to subdue someone without causing a scene, and the kid thinks he's finally got him as his hand reaches the boot, but his movements are way too obvious to work. Tanaka prepares to shut him down, thinking about how painfully slow the guy is compared to a real pro. Tanaka slams the rookie face first into the floor. The kid hits the wood so hard he starts coughing up blood, and Tanaka has to catch him before he completely collapses. He looks totally over this whole drama, but Suda is absolutely losing his mind, calling the kid useless and telling Tanaka that a pay cut is too good for him. Tanaka just tells him to stop because the whole world is watching this mess on a live stream right now. Suda screams that he built this company himself and orders a massive guy named Gouda to take Tanaka out. Talk about a midlife crisis. Gouda steps forward and towers over Tanaka, looking like a literal mountain in a suit. Tanaka stares him down, realizing that Gouda is on a completely different level than the first guy. He knows Gouda is a legit A-rank explorer and basically the only person Suda actually trusts with the heavy lifting. They used to raid dungeons together back when Gouda was his junior, so Tanaka knows exactly how the big guy fights. Gouda pulls back a massive fist to strike. Tanaka knows this won't be nearly as easy as the last round. Suda is completely losing his mind and yells at Gouda to just kill Tanaka already. But Tanaka just stands there calmly trying to figure out the best way to deal with this giant, and then Gouda leans in close and surprisingly tells Tanaka he's glad to see him finally quitting the guild. He even offers a congrats. The big guy smiles and admits he always felt like Tanaka was way too good for a trashy company like this one. He keeps going and says Tanaka belongs on a much bigger stage than this place, which leaves Tanaka looking pretty stunned. Tanaka awkwardly thanks him, realizing the guy didn't hate him all those years, he was just a man of few words. But Suda starts throwing a literal tantrum in the background, screaming about why Gouda is acting like a loyal dog to a loser. Gouda turns around and gives Suda a look so scary, it makes the boss shut up instantly, and he explains that Tanaka is the mentor who taught him the ropes, so he's not following any orders to hurt him, no matter the pay. Gouda drops a truth bomb. If he actually tried to fight Tanaka, he'd be the one in a casket, and the president should know that better than anyone. Suda is absolutely losing it and making weird noises because he's so mad, while Tanaka just peeks out from behind Gouda. Honestly, seeing the boss have a total meltdown is kind of a mood. Tanaka doesn't really agree with Gouda's modesty though. He says that if they actually fought, the big guy would put up a serious challenge. Gouda looks down and tells Tanaka to just head out. He promises he'll deal with the president himself. Tanaka is pretty shocked that the guy is being this helpful, but Gouda tells him one more time to just leave it to him. Tanaka doesn't need to be told twice. He gives Gouda a friendly pat on the back twice, thanks him for the help. And meanwhile, Suda is just standing there gritting his teeth so hard he looks like he's about to snap. Tanaka reaches for the door, feeling relieved that he's finally done with this trash company for good. But just as he's about to walk out, the door gets slammed open by someone on the other side. A loud voice tells everyone not to move and mentions they've received a formal report, leaving Tanaka and Suda looking completely stunned. A group of serious-looking people in uniforms shows up, and the woman leading them explains they're from the association's audit bureau. Suda starts sweating and panicking when he hears the audit section is there, but then he just breaks out into this crazy laugh. He points at Tanaka and brags about how the tables have turned, telling the officers to arrest the criminal who attacked him. Dude's really trying it. The audit leader explains that they're a government branch under the Ministry of Monster Control, and they showed up because someone watching the stream reported the situation. She mentions it was pretty obvious he'd get caught since he was acting out in public, but Suda is so delusional he just tells them to hurry up and do their job. The officers don't hesitate at all. They grab Suda by the shoulders and tell him to just come along quietly while he stands there looking like a total idiot. Suda starts losing his mind and asks what they think they're doing, screaming that Tanaka is the real culprit everyone should be worried about. The leader points right at Suda and calls him by his full name, Akihiro Suda, as she officially places him under arrest for violating labor laws, and while Suda screams that it's impossible, she reminds him that he has zero excuses since the whole world saw his garbage behavior on the live stream. Tanaka just watches the guy have a complete meltdown, honestly wondering how Suda ever thought he could get away with being such a jerk in front of a camera. Suda keeps muttering that he can't believe it as the guards haul him away. It's finally over, and the boss is getting exactly what he deserves. The employees watch the arrest in total shock, thinking Suda probably forgot how the law works since he was so used to being a bully. And Suda starts pointing fingers and losing his mind. He tells the officers they're making a mistake and should arrest Tanaka for hitting him instead, but the audit leader just looks back at Tanaka and lets out a huge tired sigh. She's clearly heard this desperate excuse before. She starts explaining that he's technically right about the law that stops awakened people from using their powers, so Suda starts gloating and yelling that he told them so. Dude really thinks he found a lucky loophole to get Tanaka in trouble. Tanaka stands there with dead eyes, thinking about how everything changed for the world when people started getting special powers from the dungeon. It all happens because of this magic essence that flows through those caves and enters a person's body, and even though everyone reacts differently based on who they are, once that power is awake, it doesn't just go away. Because people can use that strength anywhere, the government had to create strict rules to keep everyone from basically becoming a weapon. But Suda doesn't care about the details, he just keeps screaming at the officers that he's the only victim in this whole mess. Suda keeps screaming for the officers to arrest Tanaka, but the audit leader tells him to knock it off, and straight up tells him that everything Tanaka did was actually just self-defense. She explains that it might have been too much if Suda was a normal guy, but since they're both awakened, Suda is the only one to blame for attacking first with a weapon. Dude is absolutely fuming at the news, and Gouda is just happy Suda's past as an explorer saved Tanaka from getting in trouble with the law. Tanaka is feeling pretty lucky that Suda counts as a superpowered person, but the leader isn't done yet. She tells Tanaka he's got to come down to the public office as well, and addresses him by his full name. Tanaka looks completely drained and just gives a weak answer. Man really hates paperwork. But then, he notices her staring at him with this intense look and asks her what the deal is. He takes a closer look at her face and suddenly wonders if she's actually his old acquaintance, Amatsuki. Tanaka looks at her closely and starts thinking that her face looks really familiar, like they've definitely met before, and Amatsuki just lets out a huge sigh, asking him if he's seriously only just now realizing who she is. Tanaka realizes it's been so long since they last saw each other that he completely failed to recognize her at first, but looking at her now, he's actually pretty impressed by how much she's grown since they were younger. Meanwhile, Suda is starting to lose it. He mutters her name while breaking out into a nervous sweat, and he screams out her full name, Amatsuki Kanade, like he can't believe a big shot like her is actually standing there. Suda demands to know what the chief of the elite subjugation unit 1 is doing here. She says her team is required for any awakened arrest. She explains that regular cops can't catch a powered-up offender if they run, but Suda still thinks it's overkill for a top official to be here. Suda claims his actions weren't even that bad, but Tanaka thinks it's weird for a legend to show up just to deal with a small fry like his boss. It turns out her squad is an elite group within the Ministry of Monster Control, basically the best of the best for keeping order. This squad is full of high-level awakened who handle monster attacks in the city and take down superpowered criminals, and Amatsuki Kanade is actually the chief of the whole unit, which basically makes her the biggest deal in the room. She's got the whole package. She's smart, strong, and a total beauty who's basically the rising star of the ministry. Tanaka can't help but notice she's younger than him, yet she's already reached the top. She's clearly on another level. He starts thinking back to when they used to clear dungeons together as kids, getting closer with every single raid, but now she's an elite and he's just some corporate slave. He wonders how things ended up so different between them. Kanade keeps it cool and tells him she was just the only one free to take the call today though. Tanaka isn't really buying it. He knows a chief like her is way too busy to just be hanging around. He gets the feeling she might have actually come here specifically to see someone. Talk about a glow-up for a childhood friend. And Kanade suddenly looks a bit flustered before she turns her back and starts walking away from him. Tanaka stands there looking completely drained. He's wondering if his old friend actually hates him now. And Kanade doesn't waste any time, ordering her guys to haul Suda away while they shout back in agreement. The guards grab the boss and start dragging him out while he screams about being the president and demands to be let go. Suda is losing his mind, barking Tanaka's name and vowing that he won't let anyone get away with this. But as they push him through the door, he just keeps yelling for them to remember this and promising he'll get his revenge. Dude really thinks he's a movie villain. His voice echoes down the hall as he rants about his taxes paying their salaries. The guards just tell him to shut up before they tighten the cuffs. Tanaka watches him go and lets out a massive sigh. He's just relieved that the whole mess with his resignation is finally over. Kanade turns her focus back to him, calling him by name and saying she needs to hear his version of what happens. So she tells him he's coming with her right now. Tanaka looks totally done and asks if they can just do this some other time. He heads for the window, telling her he hasn't slept in weeks and is at his absolute limit. She's left standing there totally speechless. Amatsuki Kanade stands there completely frozen. She can't believe Tanaka just bailed out of a high-rise window right in front of her. And Tanaka thinks to himself that while he usually follows orders, he's fine with making her wait a bit since they go way back. He holds up his card because he promises they'll talk later as long as she calls the number on it. Then he just gives a casual wave and says see ya. He drops off the ledge and starts free-falling through the city air. Dude is literally falling to his death, but looks like he's taking a nap. Kanade rushes to the window and screams at the top of her lungs that she traveled all this way just to see him. But as the wind whistles past his ears, Tanaka just tilts his head and wonders if she actually said something back there. He shrugs it off as his imagination playing tricks on him, while he glides down between the massive office buildings and back at the office. Kanade looks at his card with a sad smile. She realizes their days of raiding dungeons together are probably long gone. Later on, Tanaka is finally walking through the city on solid ground, just trying to make it home in one piece, when some guy in a suit runs up and shouts that he saw the stream. Tanaka's face drops as he realizes his secret identity is officially cooked. Tanaka is totally stressed out and tells Adachi to shut up before people recognize him, but Adachi just laughs and teases him about being a big star. Tanaka decides he's done and starts walking home, making Adachi freak out and apologize for joking around so much. They settle down at a restaurant where Tanaka tells him he always talks way too much, and Adachi just smiles and says way too much. He slides a menu over and tells Tanaka to order whatever he wants as a retirement gift. He's really trying to make up for being a loudmouth. Tanaka just sighs and looks at the menu, probably wondering how he ended up here. Turns out Tanaka got a text out of nowhere earlier inviting him to lunch. He's jobless now, so a free meal at a cheap family restaurant actually sounds pretty good. The waiter shows up to take their order, and Adachi keeps pushing Tanaka to go all out and not be shy. So Tanaka takes a second to look at the menu with a serious face, and then he starts rattling off a massive list of food. He orders a huge burger, steak, fries, and the biggest rice they have while the waiter just stares in shock. He doesn't even stop there and adds curry pasta and a whole tower of pancakes to the tab. Dude is definitely taking that free meal offer seriously. Adachi shouts that he'll take that massive order for now, making the waiter freak out at the idea of him eating even more later. Tanaka says this much food will finally satisfy his hunger, but Adachi is sweating because his friend is about to spend his whole allowance. Tanaka just smiles and tells him it's a good thing his wife is so reliable. Dude is really out here living his best life at Adachi's expense. Adachi realizes he forgot Tanaka is an active explorer who moves a ton, so it actually makes sense that he'd need a giant meal, and notices that Tanaka is finally looking healthy again without those huge dark circles under his eyes, so Tanaka offers to go grab them some drinks. While he walks off, Tanaka thinks about how he used to look like a total zombie back when he was still a corporate slave, and remembers seeing his own face in the mirror that morning looking like he was near death, wishing he could just look like a normal guy again. He sits back down and gets straight to the point, asking Adachi what it was that he actually wanted to talk about today. Adachi says he wants to lighten the mood while they wait for the food, and mentions he put something together while he was off work. Tanaka looks down at the folder and sees a full plan Adachi wrote called The Road to Becoming a Popular Streamer. Tanaka flips through the folder and finds all these detailed guides on popular viewing times and how to engage with a chat, and Adachi points out that he probably has no clue how streaming works. Tanaka just sits there sweating while looking at the massive plan, so Adachi tells him not to even worry about it. Tanaka looks pretty exhausted just thinking about the learning curve, but then Adachi flashes a wink and a grin, promising that he's going to turn Tanaka into a legit world-class streamer. Dude's acting like a pro manager already. Tanaka starts tearing up because he can't believe his friend did all this, but Adachi tells him there's actually one more thing, and sets down a spherical recording drone. He explains it's an older model than the ones at the Black Dog Guild, but it works fine for now. Tanaka is a total mess now, crying while asking if he really went and got him a whole drone too. It's a pretty big deal, but Adachi calls out to him to get his attention. Tanaka looks up, wondering what else could possibly be left to talk about, so he asks what's going on. Adachi pulls out his phone and tells him to hang on for a second while he finds something. Meanwhile, he holds the phone up for Tanaka to see. Tanaka leans in, looking focused on whatever Adachi is about to show him on the screen. Adachi shows Tanaka the new channel he set up, explaining that you can't stream immediately after joining. He made it yesterday just to be safe, and tells Tanaka he can start tomorrow before promising to send the login info later. Tanaka is basically speechless as a waiter brings out a massive burger. Tanaka stares at the food and tells Adachi he's seriously talented at planning. The waiter bows as they get ready to eat, and Tanaka starts to worry, asking if Adachi is sure about doing all this since he can't really pay him back. Adachi just gives him a confident smirk. Adachi says he isn't some loser who would leech off an unemployed friend. He hands over a box and says he's just having fun with the project, so he tells Tanaka to stop worrying and just go for it because he's hyped to see him in action. Tanaka looks determined and finally agrees. Tanaka grabs his silverware and says he's going to make the most of all this help. Adachi tells him he better, and then asks if Tanaka wants to join another guild since he got scouted on stream. Tanaka is way too busy inhaling his food to even talk. Dude is eating like it's his last meal. After a drink, Tanaka says he wants to try going solo to test himself. He liked the support from the chat and wants to see what he can do, so Adachi laughs and says that's cool with him. He suddenly checks his watch and realizes they've stayed way longer than they planned. Adachi stands up and says he has to head to the Association Management Bureau to explain everything, so Tanaka decides to tag along. He's known Kanad since they were kids, and Adachi was part of that group too. Even Suda goes way back with her, though she definitely didn't give him any special treatment earlier. As they walk, Tanaka mentions he saw her on stream and can't believe how much of a beauty she's become. Dude's just stating facts since the entire chat was losing their minds over her, and he laughs about her new nickname, that Icy Bayonetta, and how fans are literally begging for her to insult them. He genuinely thinks she's amazing for how far she's come. Clearly she's the overachiever of the childhood friend group. Adachi agrees she's grown up well, but Tanaka gets a bit depressed thinking she's probably disappointed seeing him as a total mess. He assumes she won't bother showing up for his interrogation later, and honestly he's kind of okay with that, but Adachi calls him out, saying she never would have shown up in the first place if she actually felt that way. Adachi brings up how they used to have cute nicknames for each other as kids, but Tanaka tells him to drop it and gets all fired up, admitting he's been a mess but promising to do better so Kanad sees him differently. Adachi just laughs and says he feels bad for what she has to deal with later. He's definitely trolling his friend, and Tanaka ignores the joke, mentioning he's going to prep tonight and start his next stream tomorrow morning. Adachi gives him a thumbs up and says he'll be watching the stream while he's at work. Total bro move, and Tanaka just smiles, thanking him one last time before they head their separate ways for the day. The next morning, the sun is out over Nishi Shinjjuku Station right near the entrance to the cliff dungeon. Tanaka shows up looking exhausted already, wiping sweat off his neck because the heat is just brutal. But he's actually loving life since he got to sleep in and catch an empty train like a normal person. And, with his sword on his back, he pumps his fist and decides it's finally time to get this stream started. Tanaka heads down the long stone staircase leading into the Nishi Shinjjuku cliff dungeon. He's finally back. And he can't help but notice how amazing the view is even though he's seen it a million times. The place is basically a massive bottomless crack in the earth known as the Cliff Dungeon. It actually split the city right in half when it appeared, and so far, explorers have only mapped out the middle sections. Tanaka fixes his tie and decides to stick to those middle levels for now. He doesn't want to show off the deep stuff too fast and make his viewers bored. He keeps Tadaki's advice about social media trends in mind while he checks his gear, making sure the drone is good to go. Then he finishes sensing everything to his phone and hits the button to post the link to his stream. Immediately, his phone starts blowing up with pings. He's totally shocked because he figured everyone would be busy at work right now. The reposts hit over 1,000 in seconds and the chat goes wild. Everyone's calling him the corporate slave swordmaster and begging to see a fight. Dude's actually getting stage fright now. He stares at the drone and realizes just how many people are actually watching him. Looking at all the job offers pouring in, Tanaka realizes his life changed because of these people. He's actually tearing up because he finally got to quit that awful company, and he stands at the edge of the cliff feeling like he owes them everything. He decides he's going to be 100% serious about repaying the favor, so he looks right into the camera drone and introduces himself as Tanaka Makoto, just a regular guy who used to be with the Black Dog Guild. He thanks everyone for tuning in to his first real stream, but the chat is already moving way too fast for him to keep up. Everyone is roasting him for wearing a full business suit in a dungeon while spamming his new corporate slave swordmaster nickname. He knows most streamers are loud and flashy, but he figures sticking to his polite working class vibe is just easier for him. Then he suddenly realizes he forgot to turn on the comment overlay. He starts fumbling with his phone and apologizing to the thousands of viewers, and he desperately scrolls through the settings until he finally finds a button that looks like it might be the right one. The drone projects the live chat right in front of him, making it way easier to read everything without having to stare at his hand. He looks completely stressed out as he bows and says he's incredibly sorry for making everyone wait so long. Talk about a rough start for the pro. Tanaka thanks everyone for the comments and tells them he's heading into the Nishi Shinjjuku Cliff Dungeon. He's only going to the middle floor today, but he makes sure to tell the chat he actually ate breakfast. He admits that replying to comments is way harder than it looks, and he's got a new respect for full-time streamers. Since he's already right there, he tells the viewers he's going to start the dive immediately, and he even asks them to share the stream on socials since he's technically jobless now. Talk about a shameless plug. He explains that this specific dungeon is tucked right into the side of a massive cliff. It's way down at the bottom, so just getting to the entrance used to be a total nightmare for explorers. Luckily, the government recently put in a massive elevator to take people straight down to the dungeon floor. But when he gets to the station, his jaw drops. The place is absolutely crawling with people. He's been here plenty of times before, but he's never seen a crowd like this and wonders what's going on. Tanaka wonders if this massive crowd is here because someone found a rare item or a monster, but then he starts panicking because he doesn't want his first big stream to be a total failure. The chat is already turning on him with people saying his past wins were staged and threatening to unsub. He knows he has to do something fast, even though the info he got from Adachi isn't helping at all. He decides to man up and just ask someone in the crowd what's going on, even though he's sweating bullets. It's been a minute since he's talked to a stranger and it feels super weird, but he takes a deep breath and gulps while his drone records everything. He finally walks up to a guy in armor. The dude is just chilling on his phone, so Tanaka asks if he can talk to him for a second. Suddenly, someone in the crowd yells out his new nickname, the corporate slave swordmaster, and everyone starts losing it. A girl even mentions he's way hotter in person. Guess he's actually famous now. Tanaka stands there while the entire crowd of explorers just stares at him in total shock. The pressure is getting to him so bad he feels like he's actually going to be sick, and his stream is blowing up with people calling him a straight-up celebrity. Some viewers are even wondering if the top guilds are going to try and recruit him now. Trying to ignore the hype, Tanaka looks at the massive line and asks the guy next to him if something went wrong at the entrance. So the armored explorer asks if he's planning to hit the Nishi Cliff dungeon too. The dude is totally fanboying and can't believe he's diving with a famous person. Tanaka realizes Nishi Cliff is just a super short nickname for the Nishi Shinjjuku Cliff dungeon. Honestly, kids these days are getting way too lazy with their words. Dude's acting like he's 80 years old. He tries to stay focused and asks again why everyone is just standing around in such a huge group, and the guy finally snaps out of it and apologizes for losing his cool. He explains that the main elevator used to get into the dungeon is actually broken. Apparently, a few groups managed to get down there early this morning, but the whole machine just gave out and stopped working halfway through the day. The explorer mentions that if it doesn't get fixed, the people already inside the dungeon are going to be stuck down there. Tanaka thanks him for the heads up, but he's starting to stress out because his viewers are already complaining in the chat. He doesn't want to wait around, but going to a different dungeon would be a total buzzkill for the stream. Tanaka sees the chat going wild and starts panicking. If he doesn't do something fast, his sub count is going to tank, and he suddenly remembers that the file Adachi gave him had a backup plan for when things hit the fan. He finds the screenshot and the advice is basically to just brute force it like a corporate slave. Honestly, what a weird tip. But he heads over to the small reception booth near the entrance to see what's actually going on. Inside, the staff are freaking out because 18 people are trapped, and they haven't even confirmed if they're still alive. As the girls are stressing out over the phone, Tanaka walks right up to the counter and gets their attention. He slides his ID across the desk and calmly tells them he's heading in, so they need to check him in now. The receptionist looks at the name and completely loses her mind. She recognizes him instantly as the corporate slave swordmaster. She starts fanboying hard, telling her coworker Satomi who he is and bragging about how she's seen every single one of his streams. Tanaka realizes his face is basically famous in the dungeon world now, which is cool and all, but it's making his life way more complicated. Tanaka stands there feeling pretty awkward with everyone staring, so he just quietly asks to check in, and the receptionist looks super worried as she tells him it's actually impossible to enter the dungeon right now. Tanaka doesn't really care about the rules though. He tells her it's fine and to just process his check-in anyway. Usually, anyone going into a dungeon has to go through the staff and submit a formal application, and if you're part of a big guild, they handle all that annoying paperwork for you. But since Tanaka is a freelancer now, he's got to do it himself. He taps the screen and gets the approval beep. The receptionist hands his ID back and tells him the check-in is finally complete, so he grabs his card and thanks her. It's funny how he's so polite while literally about to break the rules. He walks away from the booth and heads straight for the massive entrance area alone. Tanaka reaches the edge of the deep pit and looks down into the dark. Time to see if he can actually pull this off. Tanaka looks down into the pit and decides he's just going to follow the advice Adachi gave him, so instead of taking the long way into the dungeon, he eyes the drop while his chat freaks out about him dying. The viewers are trolling him hard. One guy says he's quitting while another says even a pro can't do this, and nearby, Amatsuki Kanade spots him standing by the ledge and wonders what he's up to. The rest of the crowd recognizes the corpo slave swordmaster and starts whispering about why he hasn't left yet, but Tanaka doesn't give them a second thought as he casually hops right off the edge of the massive cliff. Everyone watching is completely stunned. They can't believe he just threw himself into a hole that deep. The livestream chat starts moving a mile a minute with people literally screaming in text because Tanaka realizes he probably should warn them, but Adachi did say he needed to keep things surprising. He figures the liveliness of the stream is worth the risk and dives headfirst into the dark.